let me shift here, and I just want to talk a little bit about silence. Silence, my sisters and brothers, has many dimensions. There is a sacred silence, which is that silence out of which creative contemplation grows. It's a meditation on the word and the will of God. It's the silence out of which we meditate and get closer to God. It's the silence in which fervent prayer is born. There is a sacred silence. But then there's a seething silence that comes when you are quiet externally, but you've got a storm going on the inside. The late Dr. Howard Thurman called that a noisy quietness. But then finally, and here's the silence I want to get to, there is a sinful silence. And Adam's silence falls into this category because a sinful silence is a silence that comes over you when you ought to say something, but you don't say nothing at all. It is that silence that creeps in when you ought to speak up for God, but you sit there acting like you don't know what God said. My sisters and brothers, I fear that Adam was not only silent on that fateful day in the garden when a serpent showed up, but Adam has remained silent through the centuries. When Africans were captured and taken from their homeland, packed in the hulls of ships, sold on auction blocks, beat and killed and misused and kept in shadow slavery, Adam was silent. When Jews were persecuted, deported, and murdered by Nazis, Adam was silent. When Native Americans were slaughtered in the acts of genocide so their land could be taken from them, Adam was silent. When our ancestors were lynched and called boy and girl, even though they were full grown, when they were denied employment and equal access to resources, Adam was silent. And today, far too often, when our boys are shooting and killing each other on the streets, and our girls suffer from low self-esteem and give birth to children whose daddies won't stay around to take care of them, Adam is still silent. Sisters and brothers, there is a sinful silence among us when injustice is raging and we remain quiet. When people are aching, when people are hurting, when babies are crying and dying of hunger and not having enough love from insufficient care, and we remain silent, that is a sinful silence. When the church looks and sees what's going on in its communities, and not just in its communities, but what's going on right there in the household of faith, and we sit there and act like we don't know what's going on, that is a sinful silence. And let me suggest that there's a time when silence is sinful. And here in the text, we see a snake talking to Adam's wife. Adam remains silent. Adam should have said something. My sisters and brothers, the nation is waiting for somebody to say something. Go on, touch your neighbor and tell him you ought to say something. You see them boys on the corner, you ought to say something. You see what's happening with those sisters. I'm not talking about Pookie and Ray Ray and them. I'm talking about the saints' children. Y'all ain't gonna help me in here today. You ought to say something. The classroom is waiting for somebody to say something. Youth violence is waiting for somebody to say something. Every community, every city, every town, every home, every boy, every girl, every family is waiting for the church to break the silence. And if we don't break the silence, let me tell you what's going to happen. If we don't break the silence, we end up embracing the appeals of the serpent. What are the appeals of the serpent?
98.7 WTCC. Good morning. Welcomes to the spoken word. I'm your host, Bishop Talbert Swan II. And as usual, we'll be telling it like it is through cultural idioms and nuances that shape the order, ethos, and chaos of the African American experience. Words have their own vitality. They shape their own consciousness and create their own context for interpreting social and spiritual reality. The spoken word contains the power to reshape the landscape of society. It is 7 minutes past the hour of 9 a.m. And I want to thank Mr. Kenneth Barnett for bringing us up until the 9 o'clock hour with the promise. You can hear the promise every Monday morning from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m., bringing you the best in gospel music. A good way to start out your Monday morning, a great way to start out your week. It is Labor Day. Hope you enjoyed your weekend. I know a lot of y'all had today off. My son is out of school today. He's up early, hanging out. So no school today. Many of you didn't have work today. So, I'm not sure how many of my normal guests are actually up and on the air yet. Because, hey, I don't blame them. It's a Monday holiday. They might be sleeping in. So who knows? Listen, today, half past the hour, I've got Senator Eric Lesser, who's going to be coming in with our State House update every first Monday. We bring the senator on, give us an update of what's happening in the Massachusetts legislature. So that'll be half past the hour. Coming up at 10 o'clock a.m., we transition over to what we're calling Justice and Flow. First Lady will be with me. I'll have City Councilor Jesse Letterman. I'll have some other special guests that will come up during that hour. But during this hour, we're going to be talking about the Texas abortion ban, and are these folks pro-life? That's the question. Are these folks really pro-life? Okay? Rep your city, rep your town. Let me know where you're chiming in from. Type it in the comments. Let me get the gram on. The gram was messing up earlier. For some reason, the connection wasn't working. But let's see if we can get the gram popping again. If we can get the gram popping, then we'll be on all of our networks. Listen, I got my Twitter Spaces popping. Got my Twitter Spaces popping, and I'm trying something new today. In addition to our stream, I'm going to try to do this live audio thing on Facebook. I'm gonna try it. I have no idea how to even get it popping, how to get it working, but we're gonna try to get it popping. So in any case, join me somewhere. Join a brother, hook a brother up. Let me know where we at, all that kind of stuff. I'm trying to get this live audio room popping. But in any case, let somebody know the bishop is on the air. Rep your city, rep your town. Let me know where you're chiming in from. All right. 413-337-1867. 413-337-1867. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back.
Attitude says everything about you. Attitude is a little thing that makes a big difference. Every day you get up, you've been given a gift. That's why they call it the present. And it's up to you how you unwrap it. So yesterday is history, tomorrow's a mystery, today is a gift. So don't let the pain of your past bleed into your present and poison your future. Stop replaying the movie, why did this happen to me? When it's done with you, be done with it. If it seems like you keep running into pigeons, it's an indication that you're flying too low. So set your sights a little higher. Remember, eagles fly by themselves. If you can see the invisible, you can do the impossible. Allow challenges to be a stepping stone to propel you into new possibilities. So be discontent with your past accomplishment. You're only as great as your last success. So maintain your hunger and your passion. Remember this, within every seed there is a tree. In every tree there is a forest. Doing what you were born into is simply the environment to prepare you for your ultimate purpose. It was not a setback, it was a setup. Your purpose and potential is bigger than your past pain or problem.
Dedicate to you. Listen to your heart, don't let your mind fool you. Another time, dedicate to you. Whatever you do is gonna surely come back to you.
Successful people will do the things they hate to get the things they love. Much of life is about sacrifice. You gotta give up something to get something. Success is not about what you've accomplished, but it's what you have overcome. For it's the test that you pass in life which qualifies you for the next level. You have to be willing to face your challenges and overcome them. Most people drive 12,000 miles a year moving forward, but most accidents are caused when they move backwards. You gotta stay focused on what's ahead of you instead of what's behind you. It's your daily routine that determines your success or failure. Whatever you practice at is what you become great at. What's more important than being intelligent is having the right attitude. Respect costs you nothing, but it will cost you everything not to have it. So don't be too smart for your own good. Remember, a hard head makes a soft behind. What's more important than your five senses is common sense. The heart of a fool is in his mouth, but the heart of a wise man is in his character. So don't sweat the small things. The answer for a short temper is a long. Be slow to speak, quick to listen, and remember this. You gotta live long enough to know everything. Your character is what matters most. Once you have been labeled with a bad reputation, it's hard for people to see you any other way. A good name is worth more than all the money in the world. Your life is broken up into three parts. First you learn, then you earn, and then you return. You gotta give back.
Talk to me, talk to me, Daddy. Talk to me, talk to me, Daddy.
I look in the mirror and I like what I see. A strong, beautiful black woman staring back at me. One who's seen a lot of pain and had her share of sorrow, but who never gave up hope for a brighter tomorrow. I've been lied to, cheated on, and stolen from and hit, but it just made me stronger and I refuse to quit. That's right. And though I've been tempted, I refuse to stoop to their level. Don't go down. I rose above that nonsense and made a liar of the devil. All right now. The devil who said I wasn't good enough, cute enough, or worthy of love, I God kicked his butt with divine power from above. Power that says I can do all things through Christ, which strengthens me and brought me out of darkness so that I could see that I'm smart, I'm beautiful, I'm a child of the King. Abundant love for me, he came to bring. Oh yes, when I look in the mirror, I love what I see. She's looking good. That strong, beautiful black woman, that woman is me.
All right, 90.7 WTCC. Good morning. Welcomes to the spoken word. Finally got everything up and popping everywhere. Got my Instagram audience in the hizzy now. All right. And I need you to rep your city, rep your town. Come on here, somebody. Where y'all coming in from? I see Bloomfield, Connecticut in the spot. I see Chicago in the spot. I see Springfield, Massachusetts in the spot. Who else is up in the spot? All right, I need to know it. Where you chiming in from? It's Labor Day weekend. Listen. Before we get into this conversation, pro-life or nah, I need y'all to register. Y'all that are in the 413, I need you to register for the upcoming virtual Freedom Fund. I'm typing it as I speak. With Dr. Jamal Bryant, who is our keynote speaker for the Greater Springfield NAACP. And what you need to do is you need to go to focusspringfield.com/NAACPGS. Once again, that's focusspringfield.com/NAACPGS. You need to go there right now. Matter of fact, I think it's the description of this video. Not only is it in the description of this video, I just put it in the chat section. So y'all need to go there and register. Matter of fact, I need to pin it there. But I need y'all, I absolutely, positively, definitively need y'all to go there and to register. It's happening next Thursday, not this Thursday, next Thursday at 7 o'clock p.m. Okay, next Thursday at 7 o'clock p.m. The Virtual Freedom Fund Symposium. We're doing it virtually again because, of course, we're looking out for your health with the spread of this Delta variant, etc. We wanted to do an in-person hybrid Freedom Fund celebration like we normally do. But hey, it's not feasible for this year. So what we're going to do is do it virtually. And we've got a great speaker. Dr. Jamal Bryant is the pastor of the New Birth Missionary Baptist Church in the Atlanta area, former Youth and College Division President of the National NAACP. So please, ma'am, please, sir, click that link and register. You don't have to live in Springfield to register for that. There's a donation that we're asking for that includes your annual membership. It includes your annual NAACP membership. So click that link, get registered, okay? Also, this week, starting Thursday through Sunday, our annual Holy Convocation, the 73rd annual Holy Convocation of the Nova Scotia Ecclesiastical Jurisdiction of the Church of God in Christ will be kicking off, okay? We'll be kicking off on Thursday night, 7 p.m. Bishop Victor Rush from the Connecticut District of the United Holy Church of America is our guest. On Friday, 6 p.m., Supervisor Valerie Field, all the way from Buffalo, New York. At 8 p.m., Supervisor Madeline Norfleet, the International Elect Lady of the Missions Department for the Church of God in Christ. And then on Sunday at 3 p.m. will be our official day service, and I'll be preaching. Saturday all day is Hope Fest. Hope Fest, 12 noon to 5 p.m. Man, we got so much entertainment. It's ridiculous. We'll talk about that a little more. But we've got song, we've got dance, we've got free food, games. Y'all will be able to try to dunk me in the dunk tank. Dunk the Bishop will be popping off. All of that is happening on Saturday, 12 to 5, on September 11th. You don't want to miss that. All right, I got Southfield, Michigan up in the house. I got Maryland in the house, Bloomfield, Connecticut in the house. Wherever you're chiming in from, on whatever platform you're chiming in from, rep your city, rep your town. Let me know that you're in here, okay? Let me know that you're in here. I see some folks here in my Twitter spaces. I see David Hogg, activist around gun violence. Welcome, David. And to all of you, Pastor Lenny and Simon and so many of you others, Nick Jefferson, I see you all up in the Twitter space. If you're in the Twitter space and you'd like to chime in on the conversation, just hit that request, and certainly, as we always do, we bring some of them up into the conversation. Also, I see my listeners in my Facebook audio room. This is the first time I used the Facebook audio room, so welcome to all of you who are in my Facebook audio room, and of course those of you who are listening over the air on 90.7 FM, over our 4,000 watts in southern New England. Welcome to each and every one of you from the Pioneer Valley, and all of you internationally that are watching us on our various social media platforms. Listen, they passed a anti-abortion law in Texas, and here's the thing. It's always a slippery slope for me because, you know, as a Christian preacher, the critics will always say that I'm violating my responsibilities as a preacher when I condemn the pro-life movement. And see, here is the thing. I don't condemn being pro-life. I don't condemn being pro-life. All right? I would that no woman would have to choose the option of having an abortion. Okay? But I condemn the hypocrisy of the pro-life movement. Don't get it twisted. You know, don't conflate the two. Don't conflate the two, that I'm against people being pro-life. I have no problem with people who are truly pro-life. I got a problem with the hypocrisy of the pro-life movement, because these fools ain't really pro-life. Let's just keep it a buck. Let's just keep it 100, as the young folks say. They are not really pro-life. Pope Francis even had the moral courage and temerity to condemn the modern pro-life movement, many of them being from his Reformation, being Catholic. And he linked the pro-life issue with anti-racism. Even the Pope said that you cannot be pro-life without being anti-racist at the same time. Okay? You can't be. Welcome, Montclair, New Jersey. I see you. He said that we cannot turn a blind eye to racism and exclusion in any form and yet claim to defend the sacredness of every human life. That's a direct quote from Pope Francis. Let me say it again. He said we cannot tolerate or turn a blind eye to racism and exclusion in any form and yet claim to defend the sacredness of every human life. So, my friends, my brothers, my sisters, there is no ambiguity here. Pro-life efforts have to involve anti-racism efforts or they're completely disingenuous. You cannot defend police who extrajudiciously murder unarmed black people and then claim that you're pro-life at the same time. It doesn't work that way. There's no ambiguity. Pro-life efforts have to include anti-racism efforts as well. Otherwise, they are completely disingenuous. I'm going to get Paul up here on the Spaces stage. 413-337-1867 for those who want to call into the program. 413-337-1867. But Paul, you're up on the stage. You have to unmute yourself. Let me see if I can get him on here.
To listen. When it comes to abortion, I just want to say this. How can they say they're pro-life when they're against universal daycare, paid maternity leave, free college education, when they want to traumatize rape victims by forcing them to have an abortion? And if you're going to force them to have an abortion, you need to pay for school supplies, clothes, daycare, therapy for that woman. And if that woman chooses to put that baby up for adoption, you have to be willing to make sure that baby doesn't get lost in the adoption. It's easy to say that they're pro-life, but they're not pro-life because they're not anti-war. And it's a whole thing that I tie into when it comes to the pro-life movement, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. You preaching up on here on this stage today, Paul. I mean, all of those things you listed, man. The same folks who claim to be pro-life are the same people who support defunding programs that provide those levels of services, resources, and support to the women once they have those children, and to the children once they're born. And so you're completely correct. It is complete and utter hypocrisy to claim to be pro-life, but then you want to snatch WIC away. You want to take away food stamps. You want to take away health care. You want to take away, every resource that's available to support the life of that child, to make sure there's no cessation of life in early childhood, but then you claim to be pro-life. So, Paul, you preaching up on this stage today. If you come to my convocation, I might ordain you.
Thank you. And another thing is, they're not pro-life; they're pro-birth. That's what we have to change. You cannot play on their grounds. Because obsessed with a fetus, but when that fetus is born, they want to do nothing. Like my senator, Rick Scott, claims to be pro-life, but as governor, he cut billions of dollars from education and cut funding for rape victims. So they're pro-birth, not pro-life.
Absolutely. Thank you, Paul. Appreciate you being up on the stage. Benjamin, hold on. Dr. Jack, hold on. Those that are making requests to come up on the stage, the rest of you can call in 413-337-1867. I need to get Senator Lesser on to give us our State House update. But good morning, George and Umair and Robin and Scott and Trey and Zaida and those of you who are up in my Facebook space. And I may invite some of you all to come up on that space as well. So just hold tight right there. Let me get the senator on. Senator!
Hey, good morning.
Hey, good morning.
How you feel?
How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good.
Good. Yeah, just enjoying the last kind of summer here. We were a little bit.
Something about
Labor Day.
Right. It's that weekend. And well, what people considered like the last official weekend of the summer. Um, and so we're here. And it came quick. It seems like summer just started and bam, here we are.
I know. Maybe it's my age, or everything just feels like it goes quick now. I don't
Well,
know.
my
Summer
uncle,
came and went. Fall's gonna go quick. It's before you
yeah,
know it, New Year.
my uncle Talbert, who is 93, he said, he gave this story of how back in the day they used to ride the train. And back then, when before they had fiber optics and put everything underground, they had all these telephone poles that they hung the wires from. He said, if you go along the track, when the train first would take off, you could count those telephone poles: one, two, three, four. But as the train kept going and picked up speed, pretty soon you couldn't count them. They would just you
It was
couldn't
just a
count.
blur.
And he said that's how life is. In the beginning, it goes by slow, but then the older you get, it seems like the faster it goes. And you look up, and you're 35, and you look up, and you're 60.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it
No,
happens.
it's a good. Reminds you to count your blessings, right? And sometimes it's good to go slow, but lot going on these days. So we just, I guess the telephone poles are zooming by.
Absolutely. So what's happening up on the State House?
So we did have a pretty quiet August. The State House was out of session for the month of August, but we're back in session this coming week, and we have a big hearing that I'm chairing on Thursday about how to use the ARPA money. That's the Biden rescue money. If you remember, the governor had said that he wanted to decide all by himself where those funds were supposed to go. We politely said, no, you got to include the legislature, and through the legislature, the community. Anyway, there was a back and forth, and we now have a process in place for hearings. So we're going to be doing a hearing on Thursday on economic development, transportation, and workforce training issues. So big topic. We're going to have a lot of participation. People can follow that on my Facebook too. They can send me questions to ask some of the panelists we're going to have. So that's really big. And then, it's, talking about the telephone pole zooming by, things have gone so fast. We've come so far, but we're back to really focusing on COVID a lot. I was on a call last week with Western Mass hospitals, and at this point, almost 1/5 of the total COVID hospitalizations statewide in Massachusetts are in Hampden County. Just to give you an example, Bay State went from having 4 COVID patients in their hospital in early July, which was an all-time low since all of this started, to having over 100 last week. So we've just really got to stay on top of this. I know everyone is worn down by COVID, but we've really got to keep this a focus. And one of the things I'm going to be focused on is making sure that Boston and Beacon Hill is paying attention to vaccine access and COVID issues in Hampden County. So we got the economic rescue money we're focused on, and we've got the COVID issues tied to school reopenings, all these other things happening. So it's a busy week in front of us.
Gotcha. And the budget is all done.
Budget is done. Yeah, so the budget is done. The organization should hopefully be getting their money, as we speak. As you and I know, that can be an up and down process sometimes.
Yeah.
But we are going to be doing a separate budget for this federal rescue money. But it's substantial. It's over $5 billion. So that's what the hearing this week is about.
Yeah.
And then we're going to be doing the new budget process for the coming fiscal year. We'll kind of start up in January when the governor issues his proposal. So the budget's behind us, that's done, but we have kind of almost like a mini budget that we're going to be doing around how the federal money is going to get spent.
All right. Any other plans on this Labor Day?
Just laying low. I've got, when with my family, we've got Rosh Hashanah tonight. So excited about that, the Jewish New Year. So I'll be out tomorrow for that. But then really busy fall. I mean, we've got a lot going on. The Student Loan Borrower Bill of Rights, which is a bill I wrote. I've talked about this over the years, Bishop, is the law of the land. We did a hearing on that a couple of weeks ago. We're working closely with the Attorney General's office on getting that up and going. We've got a really active schedule, just getting around the community community. So much was so closed down for the last year. So I'll be getting back out to schools and community groups in the next few weeks. So just revving the engines for the fall. That's the focus for the next couple of days.
Gotcha. I owe you a call still from the other day. And
yes, I know we were trading texts. So yeah, just I'm around. So anytime. And if people want to reach me, 413, of course, 526-6501. Again, 526-6501. Email eric.lesser@masenate.gov. And I'm, of course, on Twitter at Eric Lesser, Instagram at Eric Lesser MA, and on Facebook too.
All right. Always a pleasure, Senator. Enjoy what's left of the weekend. I don't know if you say happy Rosh Hashanah or however you do it.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like a happy new year. It's start, I always kind of liked that the Jewish New Year falls in fall, because I don't know about you, but I always kind of view New Year's as kind of starting with a new school year when you've got young kids. And
right.
So, it kind of feels like the fall actually is sort of when things kind of restart, at least in our household. So happy New Year.
All right. Always a pleasure. We'll see you soon.
All right. Thanks, Bishop. See ya.
Yes, sir. All right, that was Senator Eric Lesser, who comes on every Monday with our state on recess, but they're revving up some stuff right now. $5 billion that has come into Massachusetts. ARPA money, the American Rescue Plan money. Has come into the state, and they are going through the process of how that's going to be spent. They basically, Charlie Baker, bro, decide by yourself how that money's going to be spent. We got to have the state legislators chiming in, and also the public chiming in. 413-337-1867. All right, so we were talking about these pro-life efforts that they absolutely have to have anti-racism efforts, or they are just strictly disingenuous. So let me bring a couple other people who have been waiting in the spaces. Dr. Jack, let's get you up here. Let's get you up here in the unmute yourself and go ahead and get your commentary in. In the meantime, the rest of you can call in 413-337-1867. And I see those of you who are registering. A couple of you, your registrations popped up for the annual Freedom Fund. So click that link that is pinned on Facebook and register for the annual Freedom Fund. All right. Dr. Jack going once. Trying to get you in, bruh. Otherwise, I got to go somewhere else. Make another request, Doc, and we'll get you back in. I know this is new to a lot of people. It's new to me. Let's see if we can get Sean up in the space to have commentary. Then I've got a request on my Facebook side, so we'll get them in too. Sean, you're up. What's happening, Sean? I hear you, man. I hear you. All right. Sean looks like he's having trouble too. New technology, y'all. New technology. Be patient. 413-337-1867. 413-337-1867. Let me see over here. I invited Trey Cortez up on the Facebook side. Sean, going once. Are you here, man? You with me? Y'all need to learn how to work your technology, bruh. I thought I was bad. All right, let's get Paul up in the spot. Once again, 413-337-1867. Paul, you're in here. All right, well, let me just talk then while they're having trouble trying to get their mics unmuted and all of that. I said again, there's no ambiguity in terms of being pro-life. There is no ambiguity at all. If you're not anti-racist, you're not anti-pro-life. With the problems that have erupted around our nation, can't do it. All right, Madeira.
Hear me?
I can hear you.
All right.
I'm gonna need you to teach. I'm gonna need you to teach.
Pro-life.
I'm gonna need you to teach the rest of them how to do this.
I just pushed. I had to give Twitter approval to use my mic.
All right, go right ahead.
This special session is just ridiculous. This whole Texas is just crazy. Pro-gun and pro-life, and let's not let people vote. That's
yeah, and that was the other thing that I forgot to mention is them passing that law that anybody can just carry a gun. You don't have to have a permit or anything. Just any old body can go get a gun in Texas now. The state is insane. They are completely insane.
Amen.
Oh boy, what do we do? What do we do, Madeira? What do we do?
We vote, we donate, we show up to your live on radio. What else do we do, Bishop?
Yeah, I mean, we've got to hold folks accountable. They need a whole overhaul of folks in elected office in the state of Texas. And there's a lot of good people in Texas that I know. But here's the thing. Texas is a microcosm of the nation. And people need to understand, we can brush it off as, that's crazy, they're Texas, or, oh, they're crazy in Florida. But when you see it happen there, to me, what that says, it can happen anywhere in America. And I got a friend who consistently reminds black people, he says, you know what, we're only a couple of laws away from the plantation. And the way y'all see all this stuff unraveling and stuff, and things that 5 years ago you thought would never happen that have happened, don't think that anything is beyond these folks. And with this Supreme Court just turning a blind eye to the erosion of constitutional rights, we don't know where we're going to be in 5 years. I mean, it's just that serious.
It is serious. It could happen. If it happened here, it could happen anywhere, and that just scares me.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining the space.
Thank you.
413-337-1867. Let me see if I get Benjamin up here in the space. Benjamin, you're in the house.
Oh, hey, Bishop. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm actually calling from Australia.
All right, Australia in the hizzy. What's happening?
Yeah, that's right. Listen, so Bishop, I just wanted to say thank you so much for everything that you do. I follow you on Twitter. I've been listening to what you've been saying. Here's what I want to say. I've been pro-life all of my life so far, and I'll continue to be. And absolutely everything you've been saying, I think is absolute common sense. It really shouldn't be controversial. These are the kinds of discussions I have tried to have with my very conservative family down here and a number of friends of mine, and I can tell you it's really frustrating.
I can only
just
imagine.
want to read out something that a friend of mine tweeted not too long ago.
Okay.
Pro-life means visit prisoners, adopt dogs, love the elderly, respect women, feed the hungry, pray for enemies, look after the sick, protect the unborn, house the homeless, welcome immigrants, give drink to the thirsty, speak up the abused, and advocate for people of colour. Yeah, and I think if anyone was to find any of those things, controversial or somehow, not pro-life, I really think they need to cross-examine themselves. That's really all I wanted to say. I don't want to take up too much of your time, Bishop, but thank you so much for what you do. And I want to say, you're speaking the truth, man. Keep up the good work.
All right. Thank you, Benjamin. Thanks for joining our space. Oh, man, said a mouthful. He's absolutely right. I mean, pro-life advocates have to consider whether their efforts to allegedly protect the unborn, if they perpetuate racism and exclusion. You've got this March for Life that has various themes. I think last year they had a theme about life empowers, pro-life is pro-woman. But the pro-life movement has never been pro-black woman. It's never been pro-Latino woman. It's never pro-Mexican woman. They're willing to throw those women and their babies away at the border who are trying to escape violence and tyranny in the nations that they're seeking refuge from. How do you tell a woman and her children, hell no, you can't come into America, go back there and face almost certain death, and then claim to be pro-life at the same time? It's easy to claim that pro-life advocacy promotes the well-being of all women by working to protect their children and their vocation to motherhood, but it's too simplistic. It's just like them saying all lives matter, without really putting any thought into why we said Black Lives Matter in the first place. And unfortunately, my friends, the factors that motivate women to procure abortions, whether it's financial insecurity, educational or professional needs, lack of prospects for the child's future, unwanted pregnancy, whatever it is, it maps closely onto the areas that discriminatory practices through this nation's history have perpetuated in the Black community and in other communities of color. And so, they often, the so-called pro-lifers often focus on this rosy, idyllic aspect of motherhood. But an honest assessment reveals that pregnancy and childbearing impose significant burdens on women, and Black women in particular, in ways that are directly linked to their existence at the intersection of two historically oppressed groups, being Black and being woman at the same time. And I know, there are those of you that are like, oh my God, their bishop he's supporting abortion. No, I'm not. I'm telling you to look at the nuance of the issue. I'm telling you that you can't be pro-life without being anti-racist in the first place. That if the systemic causes of why, say, Black women seek abortion, and it's not always simply, oh, they were irresponsible. No, it's not always that. Stop it. If the systemic issues that exist that cause them to want to end a pregnancy are not mitigated, then the cycle will continue. And so you cannot just simply say, let's ban the abortion, but let's not ban the systemic issues that cause women to want to have abortions. It's not one or the other. It's both and. And that's my problem, particularly with my white evangelical pro-lifers. You can't be racist and pro-life at the same time. You've got to demand that anti-abortion bills be complemented by legislation that supports women, black women, women of color. And you should critique rather than unreservedly praise anti-abortion efforts that fail in this regard. There has to be an integrated approach to both issues if you are going to be authentically pro-life. Pro-life advocacy cannot be divorced from advocacy that works against systemic racism, or it does nothing but perpetuate the racist systems. And you all continue to look like the hypocrites that you are. Don't tell me that you want to protect black babies by passing a bill that bans abortions, but you won't pass a bill that bans lynching. Come on, think about it for a minute. These same conservative Republicans that will push a bill that bans abortions have stalled and will not support a bill banning the lynching of black people or making it a hate crime. How the hell you gonna be pro-life and block a law against lynching black folks? I mean, come on, man. Are y'all serious? And just this blatant hypocrisy, you know, the cognitive dissonance is astounding. It's insane. Sharisa Dobbins Harris says that black women procured abortions because refusing to produce more black children to sustain the system of slavery was proof of the agency of black women and the lengths they would go to in order to exert it over themselves. You got to understand the history of this. Black women didn't start having abortion with Planned Parenthood. They were figuring out a way to abort babies on the plantation because they did not want babies born into the repressive, evil system of American chattel slavery. Yeah, that's where it started. Now, with white women, it was something different, but that's where it started with black women in America. 413-337-1867. Time check. I got about 5 minutes left on WTCC, and we'll continue on with our streaming audience. Once again, click that link if you're on Facebook to register. Please register. Please, ma'am. Please, sir. Register for the annual Freedom Fund. Dr. Jamal Bryant is my guest on September 16th. The registration link is right there, focusspringfield.com/NAACPGS. Let me bring Simon on before I sign off WTCC. Simon, you're on the air.
Hi, it's a pleasure to listen to you, Mr. Bishop.
Yes, sir.
I've been listening here from Canada.
All right.
And I saw the news what Texas voted for, banning abortion altogether. I thought to myself, this is quite astonishing. More importantly, I think human rights is a fundamental issue that a lot of people miss. And it's true. You can't be a racist and be pro-life at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I completely agree, because these are a set of values. Human rights are universal, and that's my thought on that. And I guess when Texas did that, I just was perplexed by the whole thing. And here in Canada, we do have a Conservative Party that is similar to Republicans, and we're going through federal elections currently. And there too are pro-choice, but are also pro-gun.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of contradictory. It's kind of bizarre. But I guess we go with the flow, and we listen to radio shows like this and give our opinion. So that's why I wanted to speak up and just share my opinion on that.
All right.
That's it.
Appreciate you, Simon. Thanks for joining our space. All right, let me do this. Let me transition off of WTCC. We simulcast on WTCC FM from the 9 to 10 o'clock hour. Then we continue on with the after show from 10 to 11. So while I still have my radio audience, once again, register for the annual Virtual Freedom Fund. Dr. Jamal Bryant is my guest. It is Thursday, September 16th at 7 p.m. We'll be having our award ceremony. We'll be having some entertainment, some information on COVID, on the vaccine, on prostate cancer. You don't want to miss it. The registration, go to focusspringfield.com, FOCUS Springfield.com/NAACPGS, focusspringfield.com/NAACPGS, and register. You have to register. The requested donation includes your annual NAACP membership. All right. Also, this week, if you're in the 413, stop by the Spring of Hope Church Thursday night, Friday night, Thursday night, 7 p.m., Friday night, 6 p.m., Sunday at 3 p.m. Our annual Holy Convocation is taking place. And come by on Saturday, September 11th from 12 noon to 5 p.m. all day. Entertainment, free food, free. Did I say the food was free? Yeah. Free food, entertainment, games. You have a chance to dunk me in the dunk tank. We're going to play Dunk the Bishop. There's going to be a lot going on. Vaccinations will be happening on site. A lot of stuff is happening on Saturday at the Spring of Hope Church, 35 Alden Street, Springfield, Massachusetts. All right. So to my radio audience, if you want to continue the conversation, jump over to social media real quick, and we'll continue the conversation. First Lady is coming up. We've got guests coming up on that side of the hour. So until the next time I talk to you and you talk to me, always remember, God loves you. So do I. Don't go nowhere. We'll be right back. We're back. I see our guests are all queued up. Let's go.
You say you sold
Second hour.
Black women are loud and crass. What? And your precious white woman is the epitome of class? Are you so blind that you cannot see? That pale girl child ain't got nothing on me. For hundreds of years we have stood by your side, accepted your flaws and allowed you your pride, bore your children and cleaned up lust and always settled for less. We have stayed in the background and allowed you to lead, trusting in your strength and ability to succeed, never getting the praise and credit we deserve, for having the courage, the will, and the nerve, for being the backbone that has kept it together, for you and our children in all kinds of weather. And now suddenly you say we're not good enough for you. We forced you to sell out because of the things we do. Well, where was that white woman when that white man you hate was cracking the whip?
Cracking
in
the
the
whip.
boardroom, the warehouse, and on the slave ship. She stood by his side and didn't say a word, waiting for her own chance to rule and be heard. And now it's her you turn to and treat like a queen? And me and my sisters you choose to demean? Well, hold up, wait a minute, and stop the damn bus. Because there are a few things I need to remind you about us. Listen up. A more beautiful creature never made than an African woman, no matter her shade. High, yellow, red bone, or cocoa brown, we are more than worthy of wearing a crown. Ebony, mocha, or black as the night. It is we who have always shared in your plight. We are passionate, spiritual, loving, and kind. A more generous heart you'll never find than the one that beats inside the body of a Nubian queen. The hardest working, loving, giving woman you've ever seen. So we give and forgive until there's little left. Then we're forced to put up our guard to avoid your theft. The theft of our hearts and our trust, the very nature of our soul, by our so-called brothers who are just playing a role. And you wonder why some of us act as we do? Take a look in the mirror, because the answer is you. It's not enough that the white man has always tried to keep us down, but our own men act as though they'd love to see us drown. And white women have never invited us to join their equal rights struggle. So we're out here alone with a million things we juggle, raising the children that black men leave behind, and dealing with the racism of the
I see y'all backstage looking at me like I'm crazy.
It's no wonder some of us are loud. Hell, we're just trying to be heard. In a world where everyone, including our men, ignore our every word. Where are the brothers who understand a black woman's worth? Who will protect and stand by us, for we are the salt of this earth. We birthed you, raised you, and showered you with love. We who taught you to love your creator above. We gave you all we had and taught you to be men. Open your eyes, it is us, your black sisters.
Your black
not
sisters.
Bo Derek's kind who rate a perfect 10. And one final word. Out to claim to be brothers. When you turn your back on us, you disrespect your mothers. Did you hear that?
All right. Welcome.
This is a response
to Queen.
No. Don't even try it.
Welcome to Queen and Slim.
No. No.
Okay. What is this called again?
I don't know. We still haven't settled in on the name.
Hustle and Flow.
In the creation stages.
Oh, it was Justice and Flow. Well, welcome.
Justice and Flow.
Welcome. Back with you. To all of you that are chimed in. We got some new folks in our Facebook audio space. It's finally popping. Hey, Ron, Warren, Cheryl, Scott, Ron, Tracy, Derek, Rue, all of y'all, Carlos. in that space. And of course, we still got the folks up in the Twitter spaces are up in the hizzy as well. Got some requests for folk to try to get on the air, and we're going to bring some of y'all up as well. But you got some guests that you want to bring up on today. Welcome, First Lady, first of all. Good morning. Where's my breakfast?
Good morning, everybody. Good morning,
Where's my
everybody. This is the breakfast. This is the breakfast show.
Where's my
This is
where's
the
my
breakfast
grits?
show.
Where's
This
my
is the
fish and
breakfast
grits?
show.
No, where's my fish and grits? This ain't fish and grits.
No, that's after the show.
Okay, all right. All right. So who you bringing up first?
Okay, so at the top of the hour, we have Councilman Jesse Letterman coming in to talk to us about these COVID trends that's happening here in Hampden County, certainly in the western part of the state and right here in the city of Springfield. Hi, Jesse. Good morning. Thank you for coming.
Good morning, Lady Swan, Bishop Swan. Thank you for the invitation, as always, and for all that you do to, keep the information out there in the community and keep folks informed. Happy to be here.
Thank you so much for agreeing to join us this morning. As you probably heard, we're still in the creation stages of the after show. So we're probably going to ask for your feedback to help us name the show.
Sure. All right.
A little bit later on. But
Okay.
nevertheless, as you're aware, I'm really, really, really concerned about what's happening as far as COVID is concerned right here at home. I know sometimes, we listen to the information that's being shared from a national perspective or maybe even a state perspective. And for some reason, we disconnect ourselves from, the numbers. But you happen to have information on the actual numbers and what's happening here in Springfield. So that's why I thought it was really important to reach out to you so that you can help us give the accurate information about these the COVID infections and contractions and our public health and safety numbers concerning COVID. So and I know that you're also the coordinator, president, chair. I can't remember the official title of the COVID task force here in the city. So that's also the main reason why I reached out to you. And then I also have been keeping up with your post on Facebook, and thank you so much for doing that because that's very informative and that helps to get the word out about what's happening with COVID too. But anyway, I just want to set you loose to give us the information that you feel like is really pertinent concerning COVID here in Springfield. So have your way.
Absolutely. And again, thank you so much for the opportunity. I know you reach a very wide audience and great to see the after show continuing. And let me start by saying, so I chair the city council's COVID-19 response committee. The council, has 13 members, and then we divide up into subcommittees to which we are assigned by the president of the council at the beginning of the year. And so the actual chair of the city's COVID response task force, the administrative side, that honor belongs, of course, to our good friend, Commissioner Helen Colton Harris, who's worked so hard. So I want to give her, of course, all the respect due as she's working day in and day out. But the goal of our COVID-19 response committee is very similar to the goals that you have, or some of them, in terms of making sure that information is spread throughout the community as accurate as possible. And one piece of information that came to our attention at the end of August through our regular meetings with the commissioner was the fact that in August of 2021, there were 1,647 confirmed COVID cases in the city of Springfield. And that was very striking because if you look at August 2020, there were only 182, right? And that was a year ago when we were locked down, wearing masks everywhere we go, really sort of when COVID was considered to be particularly prevalent in the community. So the reason I put that particular number out was because I really wanted folks to recognize that the pandemic is shifting and changing. We are in a different wave. And I wanted individuals to recognize that there's still some information we need to be paying very close attention to and making sure that we're doing everything we can to keep ourselves safe, keep our families safe, and serve and keep our community safe. So I got a big response from that very simple post. I just put a very simple post out. I said, here's the 2020 cases, here's the 2021 cases, and here's the link to if you would like to get vaccinated. And a lot of people had questions. Why are these numbers looking this way? What should we be doing? So I followed that up with a longer post later on that day, just sharing all the information that we get as counselors. And I always say, very clearly, I'm not a medical professional, right? I have a degree in political science, a bachelor's degree from UMass Amherst. But we're fortunate to have a lot of very professional, very accomplished medical individuals and public health experts in our community. And what we do through the COVID-19 response committee is bring them together to impart as much information as possible to us. So why are these numbers, why are we seeing these numbers, and how does this compare to where we were before? There's really three reasons. So number one is the Delta variant. Everybody's heard about the Delta variant. This is essentially a change in the sequencing of the virus, and that makes it much more contagious. And if you're unvaccinated, it can make it much more deadly as well. So it's important for folks to be aware of that. That's one of the reasons. The second reason is, of course, we've opened back up, right? When many people are back to work, children are back in schools, people are in grocery stores, going to concerts, going to restaurants. And in Massachusetts, in many settings, we are not wearing masks anymore, right? Masks are not being necessarily required in all settings in Massachusetts. They are still required on public transportation and healthcare settings. In the city of Springfield, they're required in municipal buildings, and some businesses are still requiring them. But because we've taken that piece of protection away, and many people have chosen to continue to forego those, you will see those numbers rise. But it's impacting the community in a different way than before. So first of all, vaccinated individuals are still getting infected at much, much lower rate than unvaccinated. And in the event when they are infected, it's a much more mild case. Most are not hospitalized. Those that are hospitalized, we're hearing from Bay State and other providers, have better outcomes than those who are unvaccinated. We're also seeing, because most of the cases are in unvaccinated individuals, the most prevalent unvaccinated group is younger individuals. So it's more young people getting infected. And it's disappointing to see young people getting infected. They are having better outcomes than the older individuals who were getting infected before. We have very high vaccination rate among older individuals, even here in the city of Springfield. Individuals over 50%, over 50 years old, are 85% with a first dose of the vaccine, 77% fully vaccinated, and that goes up for individuals 65 plus and 75 plus. That's a good thing. We're protecting our elders. Our seniors are getting the vaccine. They're not being hospitalized. So that's very important. But because younger people are getting infected, if you're a younger individual, it can still have a serious impact on you, especially if you have an underlying condition, even something you might not know about. And so what we've really been saying is, if you're a younger individual, please consider getting vaccinated. Talk with your medical providers about, talk with your family, your community members, your faith leaders about that. We're seeing the numbers trickle up for vaccinations in Springfield. As folks know, we did struggle with the vaccination rate, and we continue to in the city of Springfield. Right now, as of August 31st, we're looking at 47% of the community being fully vaccinated, meaning either one dose of Johnson & Johnson or 2 doses of Pfizer or Moderna. And then as of August 31st, 54% have received a first dose, which means they've had at least one shot. So we are confident that we will reach 54% very soon. The data shows that individuals who get a first dose usually do return for the second dose. But we need to continue to work together, talk with our community, answer their questions, put the information out there, connect them with trusted voices, and increase that vaccination rate. And certainly we recognize there are questions from folks still. So we're always available. As you know, I'm on Facebook. My cell phone number's out there. You can call me, email me. And if I can't answer your question to your satisfaction, I can always connect individuals with other folks. So there's certainly, so much more we could talk about, but that's kind of the state that we're in right now. What I wanted folks to just recognize is the pandemic is not over. There is still a threat to public health. It's changed, it's evolved, we're learning more. We know more about how to stay safe, but we need to be empowered with the numbers. And the last thing I'll say is all these numbers I'm sharing are available to the general public every single day. So you can go right on the City Hall website, springfieldcityhall.com, click on statistical information, and be able to have an opportunity to see these numbers in real time as they develop. And another really helpful piece is the equity dashboard, which is now shared through the Commonwealth. If you go through the state's coronavirus information page, and I can share all that info with you, you can actually track vaccination rate. You can track trends among age groups, among racial groups, among genders, and so you can see, especially in communities like Springfield, what is going on in your community. So that's kind of the broad overview, Lady Swan. I know it was quite a lot of information, but that's kind of what we're hearing and what we want folks to be aware of.
No, that was perfect. A lot of information to decipher, a lot of information that certainly is empowering, because what I think what's most important is that we know that this pandemic is far from being over. And then all of the other nuances that, go along with that. For instance, like you just shared or alluded to, the fact that, people are going back to work, the children are going back to school, which is probably one of our biggest concerns right now. And I'll talk to Sister Denise and Sister Latonia about that later. They're coming on to the show after you. And so I'll talk to them about, what's happening in the schools concerning COVID. But nevertheless, we're kind of still walking on eggshells. As you know, I'm one of those who suffered from COVID right before the vaccine was created. And I also lost my mom right before the vaccine was created. I was telling, I forget, somebody the other day how sick I was, and I was sick for at least 5 or 6 weeks, and I still suffer from some long-term effects. I still suffer, from some things. I still, for instance, I still have brain fog. I'm experiencing it right now. Whatever. I still, suffer from brain fog. I get intensely exhausted at the drop of a hat. All of a sudden I can be feeling really great, and then I need to go and lay down and take a nap. So I get exhausted really quick. Every once in a while I have these like funny breathing, episodes. It's just a whole lot of different little things that are different now, physically and medically, that, I didn't have to deal with before experiencing COVID. But, I have had several friends who contracted COVID after they had been fully vaccinated. And they got a little sick, but they did not get sick to the level that I got sick, and I don't know of anyone who contracted COVID after they had been fully vaccinated that died. But I know a lot of people, and I mean a lot of people, too many to even number and name at one sitting. I know a lot of people who died before the vaccine came out and contracted COVID. So I know a lot of people who died from COVID. And like I said, and I tell people all the time, my mother being the most significant one, certainly, losing your mother to COVID is something that I'm not ever going to forget. So how we take care of ourselves and public safety has become, very important to me. So whether we decide to get the vaccination or not, we still have a duty to be safe and follow all other safety protocols. Wear your mask. I went into Boston Market the other day, and it was very disturbing to me that I was the only one in there, the only customer in there that had my mask on. That was very disturbing to me. And I'm sure that, a lot of people, run into that, they go into, different places because, the economy and the places, the city has opened back up or whatever the case may be. It's very disturbing. to have lost as much as I have, for instance, and to be fully vaccinated now. My whole family is fully vaccinated now, and we're still wearing our masks, we're still sanitizing, we're still using our Lysol, we're still trying to be safe for everybody else, or whatever the case may be. And it disturbs me when other people are not taking those precautions. So again, thank you so much for sharing this information. I'm going to ask you if you would be willing to continue to come back, to the show and share information as we're updated. Also, thank you again for agreeing to be with us this weekend at Hope Fest, which, we're also doing a vaccination clinic, and all of those things is really about, again, giving this information to the public and helping the public to make a decision about how they're going to be safe, or follow these precautions so that everybody can be as safe as possible throughout the rest of this pandemic. Bishop, did you want to talk about? Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Bishop, did you want to talk about Hope Fest? Jesse's going to be there Saturday.
Hope Fest is happening this Saturday. It is incidentally the 20th anniversary of 9/11. It's hard to believe that much time has passed since then. But we will be having Hope Fest 2021 from 12 noon to 5 p.m. on the grounds of the Spring of Hope Church. And there's going to be entertainment. We've got some of the best in the area. We've got special guests, Pastor Jesse Burgess and the Singing Saints, Deacon George Lovejoy and the Prodigal Sons. We got Vanessa Ford, Pastor J.P. Morgan. We've got K-Sam partnering with Sam Bradley and Spirit Life Entertainment, who are bringing on so many others in that space. Spoken Word, D. Moss, Lynette Johnson, some of the best that we've got in the area. In addition to that, there will be games that will be taking place. There'll be a raffle that's taking place. We'll be giving away prizes. There will be free food catered from some of the best places in the area. So there'll also be vendors that will be there for you to patronize. And there will be vaccinations on site right in the sanctuary. Behavioral Health Network will be there partnering with us, giving vaccines to anyone who desires to be vaccinated. And then we'll have speakers that will be talking about the importance of vaccination. They'll be talking about protecting ourselves from the pandemic. Our Commissioner of Health and Human Services, Helen Carlton Harris, is scheduled to be there. We've got folks from elected officials to clergy. So we've got Counselor Justin Hurst, Counselor Letterman, Bishop Andrew Dobbin, President of the Pastors Council, and others who will be coming in and speaking throughout the day on the importance of vaccinations and safeguarding ourselves against COVID-19. So it's going to be a wonderful day of food, friendship, fellowship, information, entertainment, and the special added bonus, there'll be a dunk tank there. And you'll get your shot at dunking the bishop. I mean, ain't none of y'all got skills like that.
I'm going first.
I'm gonna stay dry and all that.
I'm going first.
We're gonna see what happens with that. So it's gonna be a wonderful time. So we're glad you're gonna be with us on Saturday, and we're looking forward to it.
I'm getting my arm ready because I'm going first.
I'm looking forward to it. I will not be stepping up to the dunk tank, but I am excited to see folks there having a good time, and everything. I'm always glad to be at Spring of Hope, and everything you said, Lady Swan, is absolutely right. We know that COVID numbers go up in the colder months as we head into October and November and December. We know that the biggest spread, greatest increased transmission is when folks are indoors, right? That's one of the things we've learned. When you're outside, it's very, very little spread, very, very little transmission. For example, Hope Fest will be outside, but as we look at where we're headed, we are advising people to wear masks inside. When you're inside a public space, when you're in a very close crowd, big crowd, We are advising people to wear masks. Masks are required in all municipal buildings, required in all public schools, public transportation, healthcare settings, whether you're vaccinated or unvaccinated. But if you are unvaccinated and you have not chosen to get vaccinated yet, it is really important to first of all, to consider getting vaccinated. Talk with your medical providers, talk with your neighbors, talk with your faith leaders. But until that time that you do choose to get vaccinated, or if you're an individual who is unable to, because there are some individuals who have medical reasons why they cannot be vaccinated, they are especially at risk. It is very important to wear a mask, especially when you're inside, especially when you're around large groups of individuals who you do not know their vaccination status. So that information is important to continue to spread, and I'm always happy to come back, as are I know my colleagues, I know the commissioner. You know, we're here to give as much info as possible, and we appreciate the platform and opportunity to do so.
Thank you so much, Jesse.
Absolutely, and good luck. I hear my colleagues from the school committee are coming on, and I'm gonna be listening in for them as well. I know they bring a wealth of information, and I always appreciate their assistance, both Committeewoman Naylor and Committeewoman Hurst, when I hear from parents as well. I know parents have a lot of questions right now, so I'm really glad to hear they're coming up.
Yes, thank you so much.
Appreciate you. All right, you want to bring up your next two guests?
Yes, as I've already alluded to while I was talking to Jesse, and again, I you know, all of that information is it's so critical right now to, you know, what we're experiencing here in the city. So I'm so appreciative that Jesse is willing to come on and continue to share with us. And we will be reaching out to the commissioner and see if she has time to also help us, you know, keep the community in the loop of what's going on. But at this time, what we want to do is we want to transition to our special guests today, which are two of my absolute favorite people on the school committee right here in Springfield. They are running for re-election at large. And we listen, Springfield, we need to bring these two ladies back to the school committee. They are gems to the school committee. Most importantly, they are gems to our children. Need them. Our schools need them, and our children need them. But we have Sister Denise Hurst, and we also have Sister Latonya Monroe Naylor with us this morning. Thank you so much, ladies, for being with us this morning.
Good morning.
I'm sorry that, hey, I'm sorry that I had to, it's a little bit of a delay. So I'm sorry that I brought you on a little bit later than I anticipated the show to be today. But as you know, COVID is trending here in the city. So I thought that it would really be important for us to share information about what's going on as far as this pandemic is concerned. So thank you again for waiting, and I'm so excited to have you two here. I'm unapologetic about how I feel about you two. You know, I'm unapologetic about it. We absolutely need to bring both of you back to the school committee. If nobody else, you know, we need you too. And I'm not just saying that because I love you as women, as queens in the community, and because you're women of color. I'm saying that because of what you've done since you've been on the school committee. If I'm not mistaken, Denise, you've been on the school committee for 12 years?
I have, First Lady.
Right. Okay. And Sister Latonya, you're finishing your first cycle. You're finishing your first cycle. And we need to bring you back. I'm sure Sister Denise can attest to that.
Absolutely. Unequivocally, there's no way that we can do what needs to be done if Miss Monroe Naylor is not there.
Right. So I just really wanted to bring you two here this morning to have a conversation with you about what's going on in the schools, you know, in the school committee, why you're running again. This is not easy work. I know this is not easy work. I've never done it. You know, I admire you two, but I don't envy you two. You know, but it's a reason though why you feel the need to continue, well, to come back, you know, to come back. So that's where I want to start. That's where I want to start. And we're going to start with you, Denise, since you've been on the school committee for a long time. This is a long time and you're running again. So talk to us about that.
Sure. Thank you first and foremost to both you and Bishop for putting this on. I think it's so important. And whenever we have an opportunity to raise the profile of the school committee and talk about the work that is trying to be done to educate our youth in the city, I think it's absolutely important to do that. So thank you. And it's a privilege to be here with I'm just going to call her Latonia because that's what I call her, with Latonia, because from the moment that she got elected, I mean, we had some real candid conversations leading up to that election, and we were able to forge a really amazing friendship and partnership. And I think we've served children and families really well over the course of the last 4 years. And I know that some of the things that we've done we would not have been able to do if we were not there in partnership together. So I am running for re-election again because I definitely believe that there is still more to be done, and more so than ever. I have 2 little boys that attend the school district, and when I first ran, I didn't have kids in the district. I ran as a graduate of the district. I ran as a social worker who felt like I needed or could bring a very different perspective on how we needed to educate the whole child, which meant increasing family engagement, increasing our community partnerships, and just really being able to talk about how our policies needed to support students that didn't come from traditional households. And over the years, I think we've been able to provide some of that, but I think there's so much more that needs to be done, especially as we are, or what we thought was emerging from the pandemic, which doesn't seem to be the case, as we just heard from Councillor Letterman, considering the numbers. And as we think about the racial reckoning that our country is going through, and it's not just happening in our country, it's happening right here in our backyard. And with a school district that is majority minority children of color, I think it's really important to ensure that we are there, or that I am there. And I say we because I definitely believe it's important to recognize that none of this work can be done in a vacuum. It can't be done as a silo. I am only one vote, right? Which is why I need Miss Naylor there. I need so many other people who see the importance of ensuring that we are creating effective, equitable policies that are going to give our kids a fighting chance.
Sister Latonia?
Yes, ma'am.
So speak to us about why you're running again.
Oh, the reason why I ran the first time is the reason why I'm running again. My children have always been the reason why I've done this work. I can't imagine a better reason than my 4 beautiful babies that are all children in the schools. Growing up in the city, having went to the schools myself, having graduated from Springfield Central High School, having stayed local and went to colleges here local because I love my city and I want what's best for our city. And I know that if we have people sitting at the table making decisions for our kids who don't understand our struggle, who don't really have the connectivity to our community, then they're not going to be able to do an effective job of advocating for them. And so who better than people who've come from the city and have kids in the city to be a part of this work and this fight, because it is a fight. It is not something that we can just say, oh, school board, and if I don't have kids, I shouldn't care. No, you should care, because what happens in our educational system affects and impacts all of us in this city. It affects our taxes, it affects public safety, it affects, you name it. So education is important, and I am a believer of it. I live it, I walk it. Everything that I do is about education, from my daily job working at higher ed to the nonprofit that I co-founded. Everything is about education for me, because I know that it is a key for many of us to be successful, and it's a way out of poverty and improving our community. So those are all the reasons why, but mostly because of my 4 babies and knowing that there's a lot of kids in our communities that don't have the same level of advocacy of having a mom like me, or a dad like my husband, or a mom like Denise, or a father like Justin, who can say that we're going to look out for our kids and make sure that our kids are okay. So they need us to advocate for them as well. and our staff need us to advocate for them as well. So
those are. That's the main reason. That's the main reason why, you know, you two are my favorite on the school committee. It's very easy, you know, to say watching over the years, right? That I get frustrated every time when it's you two and Miss Barbara, you know, or whatever, that are voting one way, and then the majority of school committee members are voting in another way. And they're typically maybe don't have children in the school system, maybe don't have the same kind of passion, you know, for Springfield residents and families and this, that, and the other. And I mean, and they certainly don't have a clue when it comes to the Black community and the brown community, you know, here and, you know, in Springfield. And it's really frustrating for me to watch. So I can't imagine what that must feel like for you two to be on the school committee and to, you know, have to face those kinds of, you know, conflict all the time in making decisions, you know, concerning our children. So, you know, that's part of the reason why I'm so invested in trying to help make sure that the public realizes how important it is to get YouTube back, to, you know, certainly support Ms. Barbara, and certainly most importantly bring on Ayana. How important that is to bring on, you know, Ayana, so that we can again do something about the frustration that we feel all the time for YouTube in particular. So with that being said, though, let's kind of get back to some of the issues that are on the table for the school committee right now. So, Denise, we're going to start with you. Same question, though, for you, LaTonya. What are the top 3 issues or things that's on the table right now in the school committee, and you want to make sure that you get back to get back to the school committee so that you can continue to work on those things?
Sure. So first and foremost, I think we need to really take a look at our policies, and we need to figure out, what have we learned from this pandemic? How can we be innovative and creative around educating our children? Because we are living in very untraditional times, and we cannot lose sight of what we lost over the last, 18 months. And I think that we're at a real opportunity, or at a real point in time, that we can capitalize on being innovative and creative and thinking, how do we make certain that our kids don't have any more learning loss? How do we make sure that they have access to what it is that they need so that they can get the best education possible? And I think that that's going to mean thinking about doing things out of the box, like the virtual school. We know that that didn't work for everyone, but it did work for some students. I also think that we need to look at our curriculum, and we need to look at how people of color are being depicted. We need to look at the use of our Native Americans as mascots, and how we have yet to change that here in our city, but we're seeing it changed all over the United States. And I think that that really speaks to equity and honoring not only equity, but diversity and inclusion. And I think that there's so many things that we need to do around revamping our policies so that they are anti-racist, not neutral, because we know that being neutral is being complicit and basically being a kind racist. And I think that we also really need to take a look at, how do we create a real pool of teachers and paras and administrators that reflect our children.
Wow. Denise Hurts for president.
No, thanks. Miss Naylor for president.
Oh, wow. That was awesome. I mean, it's almost like you was expressing my heart. So, and we haven't had a conversation, you know that. So, but it's almost like you was expressing my heart. Thank you so much for that. Latonia?
Well, I definitely want to piggyback on the equity. Equity is a big issue. And equity, for most people, they look at equity in one way. They look at it more like inclusive and diversity, and it's not, right? There's a difference between equity and all of those things. Although they intersect, they all definitely still stand on their own and need to be dealt with in different levels and capacities. And I think when we start to talk about equity and you look at the policies that we have in place, whether it be how we discipline our kids or whether it be how we choose our curriculum or books for our kids to read, whether it be how we deal with kids who are gifted and talented versus kids who are having special needs or kids who fall right in the middle, whether we think about how we engage our families and our parents in certain schools and in certain communities and what that looks like and how and what number of resources we have available from community organizations and corporations in certain schools, but then in other schools that don't have anything, right? So equity is such a full, wide spectrum. And I think when we start to look at our policies, that we also need to look at how we implement our educational opportunities for our kids. And then how do we engage our community and how do we engage our families? Because if you look at a school that has high engagement of families, you're also looking at a school that's likely level 1 or a school that's moving into level 1 because our parents know what our kids need. Our caregivers know what their kids need. And when you invite them to the table to be a part of that conversation, then we absolutely are going to come up with realistic solutions to the problems. I think another issue is transparency. There's a lot of things that are just not clear for our families. They're not clear for us. And we're school committee members. A lot of times we don't always understand or see clearly what things are. And sometimes I say it's clear as mud. Like you don't know what's happening, right? Until it's too late. And that's an issue. And so I think when you start to look at transparency to me, which is my second thing. And then I would say, and those kind of interconnect. I think the other thing is, and I see so many people asking so many questions, is how do we continue to inform and educate our community? Education is not just about K through 12. It's not just about if you have kids in the schools. It's not like we need folks to mentor our kids. We need folks that are willing to take time out of their day and say, hey, what can I do to give back? And how can I contribute to somebody's child, even if they're not my child? It still takes a village. And I think that the more that, we have folks who are coming at things from an asset-based perspective and not necessarily a deficit-based perspective of all the things we're doing wrong. Let's talk about the things we're doing right and build on what's right versus coming in trying to be this adversarial thing that's going to only cause our kids to be casualties. Our kids are always going to be the casualty in whatever we do if we don't make the right decisions and if we don't do it properly and if we don't do it with the understanding that egos need to step to the side and our kids are primary and most important. That I think is being lost in the shuffle a lot of times when we start to talk about funding, when we start to talk about resources, when we start to talk about access. We have to remember who are the people that are going to be impacted the most by our decisions, our children. And so for me, that's what I want to continue to do, make sure our children continue to be the center of all conversations, because once you start centering our kids, equity becomes very easy to have a conversation about. Resources and how we spend it becomes a very much easier conversation to have. How we engage families and community becomes a much easier conversation because everything is about how do we take care of our kids.
Mm-hmm. And that's a perfect segue. And I'm going to start with you with this question, right? But one of the things that's been really heavy on my mind during this election cycle, if you will, is what do we do beyond the voting? What do we do beyond the election? So you won the election and you're back in your seat. What do you need from the community after the election?
I need the community to understand voting is not the only thing that you do. Being a part of the conversation, being at the table, coming to the public speak out, sending emails, putting in requests, coming to the budget hearing meetings. People ask about the funding, but nobody shows up to the budget hearing meetings, and they're very publicized. They're publicized in the newspaper, they're publicized in TV, they're publicized on social media. I know because I make sure I publicize it just as much as we ask the district to. It's on the website. We might have 2 people show up if we're lucky. to those meetings. And unfortunately, those meetings are where we talk about prioritizing and how do we prioritize our funding. Respond to the surveys and say how you want to see that money spent.
Right.
Because the 7 of us sitting at the table are going to make decisions based on what's most important to us. If we don't hear what is important to you, and maybe it aligns, and maybe there's something that we don't know about, right? So a perfect example is transportation. It's become a very big issue, not necessarily for all the kids, but for kids in pre-K and pre-K 4. You know, now we have universal pre-K, which is something we advocated for, which is amazing, right? Because it's free. But how do we get our kids there and get them back home, right? That's becoming a pressing issue. But if I didn't happen to have nieces and nephews that are in preschool, I wouldn't know that. You know, so I think it's very important that people understand, come to the table, be there, be present, be vocal, but be willing to participate, not throw stones. We got enough people who are living in glass houses throwing stones. We need people to participate in the process. Ask us what is it that they can do so that they can help us do this work, and not hide in the corner once we start to have the tough conversations.
I'll just jump right in.
No,
you know, I echo all of Ms. Naylor's sentiments. I think she's absolutely right that we need people to show up, and we also need to do our part about communicating what's on the agenda of the meetings, to tune in virtually, to call, to make phone call. I mean, to call, to make emails or write emails. Excuse me. But one of the things that she just said that really resonated with me was, don't just throw stones. And I think that what's really important, because our kids are listening to what we're saying, and so are their parents or their caregivers. And oftentimes in our community, we latch on to what we hear, even if it's not necessarily accurate. And so I think that, yes, we have a lot of challenges, but we also have a lot of good. And I think it's also important to tell the good stories. Nobody wants to wake up every single morning and hear about how terrible their school system is.
That's true.
And as a parent, you don't want to do that either, right? Like, you don't want to have to be thinking, where am I sending my kid every single day? And so, yes, I do think it's important to, you know, uplift those stories of challenges, of inequities, of trouble and concern, so that we can address them. But I also think it's really important to also share with them the good, right? Very much similar to our history as Black people. Yeah, we had an inordinate amount of struggle, and we continue to have it. But we also were innovators and creators and fighters, and we were difference makers. And I think that that's also really important for our kids to know, and for their parents and caregivers to know. And I think that's a really easy thing for community members to do, to help support the work that we're doing. That doesn't cost any money. You don't have to show up to a meeting or find, our email addresses to do that, or take time out of your workday to call. But to talk about some of the good, to help plant those seeds of positivity and optimism, I think is really critical, because we're living it can be a really daunting and dark time. And for our kids who don't necessarily know how to grasp or wrap their minds around that, I think it could go a long way.
Right. So what I hear you two ladies saying, and this is my interpretation, right? That what you need from the community is not just, first of all, us voting and us putting you into those seats, but you need our long-term support afterwards. So it's not just to vote for you, but to support you. And you're not afraid of criticism. Like, you want to hear feedback. Like, that's your number one desire, is to get, feedback and critique from the community that supports you. So, I oftentimes, and here's my analogy. I am a member of the Church of God in Christ. That is the church I was born in, Sister Denise. That is the church I was raised in. That is the organization that represents element of the church, right? That I know very well, inside and out. So that means this. That means that I'm invested into it. All, my resources, my time, my energy, as far as church ministry or whatever, primarily is in the Church of God in Christ, right? I'm invested. I ain't going nowhere. I ain't going nowhere. Do we have issues? We absolutely do. That means that I got the right to critique those issues and provide input for those issues, right? To speak to those issues from the perspective that God has given me, because I'm invested, I'm supporting it, I'm part of the reason why the doors are still open, and so on and so forth. So I got the right to critique it. I also got the right to continue to maintain it and to speak to those very good and essential, things that helped to make me who I am. And so you want to hear more of that. You want to hear more of the good stuff about the school department, right? But you don't mind people critiquing as long as they are consistent about supporting, consistent about investing. So that's what I'm hearing.
Absolutely. I also think that, I think it's also important not to one issue us, right? But to look at our overall records, to look at the big picture. Sometimes, so there's a lot of nuances and dynamics and all kinds of different things that happen in the background. And sometimes, you'll find someone who will say, well, you voted like this on this one issue. I did. And let me explain to you why, right? Because it's important that we know our whys as to why we took a particular stance. And maybe we won't agree, right? And we won't, but at least you'll understand where I was coming from, which I think is really important.
Really.
And I also think, and then after you do that, right? And after that happens, you then look at the whole picture. And then you get to determine, like, okay, maybe this person and I just don't align from a value standpoint. Maybe they are just on a totally different track. And that could be the case. And then you would say, all right, I know I know what I stand for. I know who I need to support because they align with me. But so I think that what you're saying is absolutely spot on, right? Like there are issues everywhere, but you have to be open to constructive feedback. And I think you have to look at the whole picture and not just one sole issue.
Right. Right.
I absolutely agree. And I think that, when we start to have conversation with folks, then folks understand how things work, because a lot of times people will even hold us accountable for things that are not our responsibility. Like they'll say, well, we don't like what this person did and you need to just fire them. I'm like, we can't just do that, right? We hire and fire the superintendent. We hire and fire, I think, the chief information officer, maybe, or we approve it or can have that person fired. And then there's one other person, maybe the head of
special ed.
Yeah. So those are the only three folks we have the authority to weigh in on their position and have them hired or fired, right? So this is another reason why, if things are happening and people are aware of things, whether it's an administrator or somebody out there that is not doing what they're supposed to do, we tell people, you got to speak up, because we are not going to know what 4,000 employees are doing, because we have full-time jobs and we're doing this as extra, right? So we need folks to communicate with us. We need folks to share information with us. A lot of times people will come to us and say, hey, have you heard about this book, or have you heard about this program, or have you heard about this resource or this training? I want to know, because I might not know. Maybe I do know, but maybe I don't. But so give me the benefit of the understanding that I do care and I am concerned about what happens with our kids and our community and our staff. And so when we all work together, this is how we make it happen. And don't solely say, and I think there's this expectation, especially when you have elected officials, that they just know everything. They don't. And some people do profess to know. I don't. Denise doesn't. We don't profess to know everything. And that's why I think we probably attack politics a little bit differently than most people, because I believe I'm a public servant. you know, and I believe I'm here for my community. So when people call me, I respond. When people text me, I respond. When people email me, I respond, because I believe I'm here to serve you. And I also want to represent your voice. You know what I mean? And so we don't just, well, I'll speak for myself. I just don't get up and speak on an issue and just say clearly, this is how Latonia feels and what Latonia thinks, without having talked to parents and kids and teachers and staff to know exactly what all the feelings are on a particular issue, and having done my research. And then when I vote pretty much knowing that what I'm going to vote on is not something I'm going to regret later.
Right.
Let me ask this question because, as you stated, one of your key responsibilities is hiring, setting the contract for, and monitoring the performance of the superintendent of schools, who has broad sweeping authority in terms of how he operates central office and in the school department. I was on the search committee.
I remember
that resulted in Warwick selection. Now, the school committee themselves selected. We pared down the list of candidates to 3 finalists. And let me state for the record, there were 2 of us who thought that the pool of candidates was too shallow. And we specifically requested that they go back out and allow additional applicants to be considered. It was myself and Charles Rux who were adamant about saying, listen, this isn't enough. I think we only had about 9 or 10 to choose from to pare it down to 3. And we felt that it was kind of set up to ensure that a certain person made it to the finalists, and then we knew what was going to happen once it went into the hands of the school committee. So when I look at what's happened through the years since that time, when I look at the fact that we were at one point in time where every middle school in the city was chronically underperforming, and where you really couldn't deal with the No Child Left Behind stuff, because that said a parent could demand that their child be put in a different school because all the rest of them were also chronically underperforming. It left them with very little choice. So you had to create empowerment zones. You had to basically almost go to privatizing, our educational process. And when I look at things like that, I have to scratch my head and say, the buck stops at the top. And I'm questioning, in any other industry, could your product be chronically underperforming and you still be maintained as the CEO, and not only be maintained but get raises, as the CEO, get
Amen. Amen. I agree with you, Bishop.
I'm like, where do they do that at? So then when we couple that with the problem with police in schools, the school to prison pipeline, all those things. So two things I want to ask you. One, what are the top priorities you think for the school department at this particular point in time? And
you didn't hear that. I asked that question.
Okay, and number 2, where are you in terms of leadership of the department? I know I might be putting you on the spot, and you may not want to answer that question, but where are you in terms of leadership? And do we have good leadership at the top of our department, or do we need to make a change? And then I'll get off and let you ladies answer.
Sure. So do you want us to answer the very first question that?
Well, you already answered that.
Okay.
I didn't know he didn't hear it, but
yeah. So I'm willing to speak openly about that, Bishop. Thank you for the very difficult question. You almost remind me of Jimmy Mitchell, because he'll definitely put you on the spot. But Bishop's right. I remember when he sat on that search committee. I also remember that it was only myself and Miss Gresham who voted against the current superintendent, and that was not. That was a really difficult time. We were people were not happy that
Yeah.
we voted that way. And then we had a real candid conversation and said, this is who the superintendent is. It's been voted on. We need to figure out how to work together, and we need to figure out how to support him, because it's bigger than just him. Right? It's about an institution or a system that we need to figure out how do we move forward. And I do think it's important to recognize Superintendent Ingram, who was there before, who I think put in a lot of great practices. He might not have been the hometown guy, and he might not have been as warm and personable, but he was there to do a job, and he was pretty clear about what his expectations and standards were. And I think that what happened was that our current superintendent was able to take that model, that framework, and people were able to execute, which has been demonstrated in the numbers, right? In our graduation rate, in our dropout rate. Now, don't get me wrong, because I know that the data can always be skewed. I know that there are things that are not being accounted for. So I don't want to paint a perfect picture, but I do think that there has been, again, some areas of improvement for sure. With respect to leadership, I think we need to take a hard look at who will be our next superintendent and when. And I say that because I think that there just comes a time where we're going to figure out how do we scale within and scale up, and we can't continue to maintain or sustain the status quo. And I've had a good working relationship with the superintendent, but I can tell you that over the course of the last 18 months, there have been some things that have occurred, some real major votes that we have taken, such as the police in schools, the way that, our efforts to change the mascot at Commerce, and the quietness, the complicitness, the impartiality, the neutrality has said to me that nobody wants to actually really be a change. They want things to continue to work the way that they are working, because it has benefited them. And as somebody who has 2 kids there, 2 Black boys, I think we're really going to need to look at it with a really critical eye. And that's why I think that this election is super important.
LaTonya, before you speak, I just want to make this statement. You brought this up, Sister Denise, when you talked about Superintendent Ingram. I wasn't working in the school system, but I did some volunteer work, and I did like some long-term subbing when he was our superintendent. I just want you to know this, that he drove one message home for me as a parent and as someone who was connected to the school system, closely connected to the school system. And that was, I don't want you in the classroom before our children if you don't love our children. I remember that. If you don't love kids, you don't need to be in the classroom. I remember him driving that one message home. And I certainly remember his testimony as well. And so that's what drove him, was his testimony. He said that it was a teacher that basically saved his life. It was a teacher that basically saved his life. So I remember him, and he did make a really big impact in this city. So I was one of those who was sad to see him go. But
and I think that to Bishop's point about the whole empowerment zone, right? Like, I think that that's where we were. I mean, that's what basically happened, right? Race to the Top came in, and all these things happened, and he was really clear about putting in place these frameworks to try and get us out. And we did get us out. And I don't want to take that from Dan, right? From our current superintendent. He did help to shepherd and move that work forward. And he happened to be there as the assistant superintendent and was able to do that. But we were in a really tough place. And I don't think it was Ingram who put us there. Remember, he was here for a very short period of time.
I agree. Sister LaTonya?
I think that Denise kind of covered it all. I think she kind of covered it up. But I think the one point that I would add in is that kind of speaks to why when you talk about Ayanna Crawford running and needed to be on that seat, because a lot of these crucial votes that Denise referred to, we were one vote away from making sure that it didn't go in the direction that it went. Just one vote, right? So nobody can call me to the carpet and say, "Well, Sonia, why did you not look out for our kids?" Because I did what I was supposed to do, right? There's other folks that did not do what they were supposed to do. And I think we have to hold folks accountable who are not taking into consideration how things are going to impact all of our kids. And I mean that all, ALL, capital.
Oh, right.
We have to think about how it affects all of our kids, not a 1 percentile,
right,
2% of what our kid, of our family. Like, we got to think about how it affects all of them. And I think that when we don't do that, then we start to make choices that are not going to, they're not going to be good for all of us. Right. Because if you indirectly negatively impact one group, you're negatively impacting all of us. If our Black boys, particularly who are the ones that are struggling the most right now, are not getting the supports that they need, when you look across the nation at the data on Black boys, they are at the bottom of the barrel. They are not getting what they need in general. Right now, if they have parents like us, they are getting support. They're going to navigate whatever, because we're going to make sure they do that. But in general, the policies around and the programming around girl empowerment, which is great. I want my daughters to be empowered too. But what about our boy empowerment? Yeah. What about our Black boy empowerment? We need to make sure that they are not being left behind. And right now, they're being left behind. And so my thing is, if we're not doing things that are going to support them, then we are absolutely not going to benefit. The rest of us are not going to benefit, because at the end of the day, they're going to be left behind, which means that there's a school to prison pipeline being formulated right there for our Black boys. And I'm not going to sit by and let my kids be lined up in the slaughter. And I hope and pray that those of you who are listening, who have an opportunity to vote, are not going to do that either.
Yeah.
Let me ask this question as we get ready to transition. But I think you two are in a very, very unique position. And we had some trailblazers years ago when the Reverend Ron Peters got onto the school committee in the all-at-large system. If I'm correct, he may have been the first African American man, at least, to get on the committee. And then you had, of course, Candace Lopes, who got onto the committee. But by and large, in that system, we had very little representation from Black or Latino communities, either on the school committee or on the city council. We fought for 12 years to bring ward representation to the city council, more of a district representation to the school committee. And folks really thought that it was an anomaly, Denise, when you got on there in an at-large seat. When Reverend McFadden ran, they thought there's no way in the world that 2 Blacks are going to get the 2 at-large seats. It's just not going to happen. And you all defied the odds. It happened. LaTonya comes along and in her first shot at elected office was able to get in an at-large seat. How do you all feel that that you kind of defied the odds in this city that say that those types of seats are reserved for the majority community, but you all have been able to hold on to them?
So I think it's really humbling, Bishop. So I didn't come from politics. I didn't grow up in a political family at all. And so when I ran, I don't know that I really understood what it meant to hold office. I think I was naive in that I was just going to be able to come in as a social worker and talk about how we needed to really make sure that we were taking care of our kids who were in foster care, that we were providing families with access and our kids who were locked up in DYS, never realizing like the dirty, ugly side of politics that no one ever talked about. And not even my in-laws, right? Like, to be honest with you, I remember because Marjorie was retiring, and I remember she looked at Justin and Fred Jr., and she was like, which.
Excuse me on that. I don't want to forget her as well. As one of those trailblazers.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. And so.
Rehearse.
Yeah, and so she looked at them and was like, which one of you two are going to run? And they were like, absolutely not. And then I was like, I'd like to. And they were like, you do? But again, it was because I was like, oh, this is going to be like sitting at, a team meeting and being able to say, this is what we need to do. And no one ever said, like, you need to make sure you're going to have a voting block. You need to know that you're going to have to, give on certain things. And no one ever talks to you about those things. I swear to you, I walked into those chambers for the first 4 years wanting to vomit every single time because of the pressure. Because it was just, and it wasn't even more so the pressure. It was just it was the uneasiness of like, that's not right. Like there were certain things that you just knew weren't right. And there were things that we stood alone on by ourselves. Like when Miss Barbara and I voted against Dan, like it was grueling. So anyways, I think it's very humbling. I think that, it can't be taken for granted. And it just can't. And coming off of a loss of a state rep race, I'm telling you, like, we cannot take this for granted because they are out there and they are trying to figure out how it is that they take these seats from Latonia and I. They know what they need. Yeah. And so, yes, I am so thankful and grateful to all those that came before us, to you on your work for ward representation. But I also think that there are a lot more people that are paying attention than we think or that we believe. And I think that bears out in the numbers when we see the numbers of how folks have voted and how sometimes our communities have not necessarily turned out. That's my hope.
So let me say this about that, if I may. And y'all know I'm not a political expert by any stretch of the imagination, but I do have a little bit of common sense. So with the 2 at-large seats, right? A little bit, right? My mama told me that. So anyway, with the 2 at-large seats, there's only 2 on the school committee out of 7 seats. Am I correct? Right.
Yes.
So right now, those 2 seats are taken by my 2 favorite ladies on the school committee.
There's actually 6 seats, but the mayor is
but the mayor holds, so he gets a vote. Right. So let's just say 7, because I need for people to understand the numbers when it comes to the voting. Okay. So anyway, so we had the 2 at-large seats, and then we have Miss Barbara, who's Ward 5. Is it 4? Okay, Ward 4.
Ward 4 and 5.
Ward 4 and 5. That's right. Okay, so Ward 4 and 5, Miss Barbara. And so traditionally, you ladies have been voting together. You've been on the same side of consciousness when it comes to voting down the pipe, for power.
And not intentionally. I want to say that we don't have conversations before we vote and say, how are you going to vote?
It's just your conscience. This is right. What we feel is best for the students, the families that we represent, and so that's what we've seen, right? So I happen to know that there is an opponent out there running against you 2, because she's running at large, right? Mm-hmm. So, in other words, if we don't put you 2 back in these at-large seats, if we don't bring along Ayana and Miss Barbara, she's running unopposed, so we're praying that everything goes all right with that, and she gets back on. If she wins, either one of those seats, there you go with the frustration again. In other words, I'm trying to say. It's critical that we come out and vote and put these two ladies back on, at large, right? And that, we certainly support Miss Barbara, so we need to vote for her in wards 4 and 5. We need to vote for her again just to solidify that seat. And then we need to vote in Ward 8 and 2 for Ayana to get that voting block, or whatever. These women who traditionally have voted, the same or aligned, for the betterment of the community. Yeah. So
Let me go to a school committee woman Naylor on that question, in terms of the, coming on as a new person to politics and winning an at-large seat. But here's the math is real simple.
the math is
Here's the simple math. The simple math is
we need to
they have always needed a swing vote to push their agenda. And here's the reality. They have been able to depend on Maria Perez as that fourth vote, because all your skin folk ain't your kin folk. And I've had a candid conversation with members in the Latino community about how troubling her votes have been.
Very troubling.
I don't know the young man who is running for her seat. I don't know where he's going to wind up, so I don't put any confidence in that he won't do the same that she did, that they can depend on that seat to be the fourth vote. And so it's critical that we maintain these two ladies, Ms. Gresham, and we get Ayana in there so that we can have a 4-person voting block that will vote in the best interests of our community.
That's it.
Yeah.
You said so much better than me, babe, but that's why we justice and flow.
I just want to say, for me, when I ran the first time, and Bishop was one of the many folks that I went to when I was making a choice as to whether I was going to run and what I needed to do to be prepared, so that I kind of understood, because I'm not a political I don't come from a political family like Denise. I voted always. I've always been a voter, but I've never really saw myself being in politics, right? And that's why I always say I'm a public servant, because if it wasn't for the experience of my own son, I don't think I would have had the passion that I have to be able to do the work that I do as determined as I am and as unapologetic as I do it. And I think that it really can be a good thing for folks that you're advocating for, but it is not a good thing for folks who want to keep you in a box and want to keep the power and control to make the decisions that they want to make. And I think when you run a race and you have somebody from your own committee who is endorsing somebody who's running against you, who doesn't have kids that live in the city, who hasn't grown up in the city, that is very telling of exactly what the issues are that we're facing now, right? And I think that when, for me, I didn't really realize how gruesome politics were until about a year ago. I always knew it was tough. I always knew that it always felt uneasy, and I always felt like, you gotta pray a lot. I pray a lot. I'm a prayer warrior. I pray a lot because you don't want to allow people to get you out of character and act the way that you're not, because they are evil or they're conniving or they're manipulative. And so I don't want to take on those same characteristics just because that's what you're often around when you're in a shark's tank. You're around sharks, right? And I don't want to be a shark, right? So I learned about a year ago how gruesome politics was. And I remember having a conversation with my family, like, do I even want to run again? Right? Do I even want to run again because of the nonsense that you have to deal with to try to achieve the goals that you think are so simple and so easy that we should be able to do? And why is it that we have to work so hard to get folks to do the right thing? Why? I don't understand. This is just a simple thing. We know our kids need this. Why can't we just do it? But it's not that easy, right? And that's why politics is the way that it is. And so I think for me, running the second time, I think a lot of people were surprised that I won. A lot of people thought I won by fluke. So I think their thought was, well, if we put somebody in a race, it'll be easy to get her out because we don't think that she really deserved that seat in the first place. Right? But I also am a believer that God puts you where He wants you to be, and at the set appointed time, and that unless He's ready to move you, you shall not be moved. So I'm also a believer that faith without works is dead. So I'm gonna do what I do, and I'm not gonna sit around and wait for it to happen. I'm gonna work to make sure that I'm standing behind the faith that I believe in, because I believe in our kids and I believe in our community. But I also know that we can't just depend on our votes in our community to win, right? We have to have folks from other communities that absolutely see the value in what we do. And there's a lot of folks that are tired, and they understand that if our educational system is not what it needs to be, that they are impacted. They don't have to look like us to know that their real estate taxes change if there's too much violence in the city, or people are shooting up everywhere or doing whatever because they dropped out of school because they didn't get the support they needed, right? They don't have to be a rocket scientist. So what I've learned is that if I can remind people of how this affects them all, then people will start making a better choice because they know what they need to do for themselves, not just for us, but for themselves. And sometimes you have to be able to, and this is what I've learned politically, you have to be able to play this game of saying, okay, you may not have the same value system that I have. You may not understand it the same way that I do. But if I can help you to see how this is going to impact you and why you need to make this choice, then at least we make the right choice. I don't care what your reasons are. I care that you make the choice that's best for my kids, that's best for our community. And so that is why I think we've been able to garner support from folks who look like us and folks who don't. Because there's a lot of people who don't want to see the city of Springfield go down. There's a lot of people who don't want to leave, and they want to stay here. They love what they built here. They love the community that they live in. And they know that our educational system is going to be key. And so they want to have the right people in place to know that we're going to fight for their best interest just as much as our kids' interests.
Wonderful.
All right. Appreciate you all coming on today. And man, whatever we can do to support your campaigns, we need y'all to be in there for sure.
It's people in the comments that want to know how to contact y'all. They want to support you. Yeah. They want to make donations. All of that.
Write checks. Write checks.
So let them know how to contact you, how to make donations.
Absolutely. That's one of the things that people, you don't have time. You're not into politics like that. You ain't gonna volunteer for the campaign. Write a check. You can write a check for everything else. Write a check.
Thank you. So for me, Latonia Monroe Naylor, I'm on Instagram and Facebook actively. My website is being revamped. It'll be up in the next couple of days again, but LatoniaForSchools.com, LATONIA, the number 4 schools, SCHOOLS.com is my website, but I'm also at Latonia for Schools on Instagram and on Facebook. So
and how do they donate?
Oh, if you want to donate, Act Blue, real easy. He make it real easy for you. You go to Act Blue and you can do a credit card and electronically, but you can also send a check to 9 Winterset Drive, Springfield, Massachusetts, 01129, and we will happily deposit it into our accounts. We got to pay for it so we can win this election.
Absolutely, for sure. Denise Hurst, and I too am on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at the handle @Hurst, the number 4 kids, KIDS. My PO box is 2342 Springfield, Mass 01101, and I too can be found on Act Blue under Denise Hurst. And so yes, we would appreciate all the support, and more importantly, make sure that you and your family and friends go out and vote for both myself and Ms. Latonia in November. And thank you, Bishop and First Lady.
Thank you for joining us. Listen, if you're not familiar with Act Blue, all you have to do is go to Act Blue, I believe it's .com, actblue.com, register one time. You can look up the names of the individuals that you want to make donations to support their campaign. Once you do that, you don't have to register every time you make a donation. Register one time and you can just go back every time you make a donation.
They can even do recurring. They can set
Yes, I was gonna say you can do recurring.
Absolutely, yeah, you can do recurring, the whole 9. Like I said, once you register, it's a very easy process. once you register, you know, that one time, you don't have to register every time you make a donation. So thank you so much, everybody.
Yes, have a great weekend, and we'll see you at Hope Fest too. Justin and I are both. Well,
Yeah,
Justin, I think, is
right.
on the thing, but I will definitely stopping by. All right, thank you guys. God
Thank
bless
you.
you all.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank you all.
Latonia.
All right, people, that was another episode of Queen Justice and whatever it's called.
We haven't decided on the name yet.
Whatever it's called.
We haven't decided on the name yet. We need the people to help us, you know, hone in on the name.
All right, listen. Hope Fest is Saturday, 12 to 5, Spring of Hope. Be there. Convocation is this week, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. You definitely need to be there. And then
It's not too late to bid. It's not too late to bid. Contact
Exactly.
me if you want to vend. It's free. No fee.
No vendor fees. You can come on in and sell your wares and do your thing. And then register. Click that link and register for the virtual NAACP Freedom Fund. Got to get out your way. I need some fish and grits. It's been a long morning. Till the next time I talk to you, you talk to me. Always remember, God loves you.
I love y'all. I love y'all. Thank y'all for listening.
We out. Later. Deuces. All that stuff.